Hey everyone, looks like some cracks are finally starting to show. There's some division among the ranks in terms of the leftist establishment media. Now this ain't CBC, don't get too excited there yet. Yeah, we're not seeing too many actual contributors in the CBC that's willing to put forth this kind of information. Matter of fact, not seeing any. But Globe and Mail, hey, once again, a lot of the contributors are very much left-leaning as far as I'm concerned. And this John Ibbitson, I'm not sure if he identifies as conservative or liberal, but when you see contributors to the establishment media in Canada that are starting to break ranks and show that they're not willing to go along with the dominant narrative, you just know things are really getting tight on the inside, right? I could just imagine, I sit here and I conjure up a picture in my mind of these people in the establishment media, how they're constantly jammering and yamming on about how they got to try to create some sense of legitimacy. Well, the people just don't trust us anymore. They don't respect us. Nobody wants to listen to us. Hey, people like the Canadian Libertarian, or just individual people with social media presence and pages or channels, they're challenging us and they're doing a great job and they're making us seem irrelevant. We got to do something about it. Well, I guess there's a few of them in there that have a conscience and maybe a little bit of competitiveness still left in them, right? And John is obviously one of those people, and he's showing us that he's willing to break ranks and give you opinion that, yeah, it's not shocking, it's not a revelation, it's not a major announcement. It's not breaking news by any stretch of the imagination. He's just basically repeating and regurgitating the kind of stuff that people like myself have been talking about for a long time now. But it's nice to see someone in the established media actually acknowledging the fact that people like myself have been right all along. Headline, this is out of Globe and Mail. It's an opinion piece submitted by John Ibbitson, whatever you want to call him. Liberal and conservative worldview so close that election isn't worth hacking. What a headline. And you know what? I completely agree. The Liberal government has announced new measures to prevent foreign actors from interfering in the next Canadian election. All well and good, but here's the thing. There's no reason why any foreign actor would want to interfere in Canada's election. The Liberal and Conservative parties are so closely aligned on every major foreign policy file that Russia, China, or any other great power would achieve nothing by attempting to promote one party or undermine another. That's so true. And that's what I've been saying. Like I said, well, that's what I've been saying for a long time. That's why I have to laugh when I hear some of these idiots that comment on my channel. I'm sorry, I usually don't try to use derogatory terms like idiots to describe people, but I'm sorry. Sometimes you just got to call a spade a spade. But all you people out there, well, I doubt many of you are watching my video, but if you are, you conservatives out there that keep playing this game of, oh, if you support the PBC, you're dividing the right. Let me just say first and foremost, well, not only the fact that, yeah, as John here is alluding to, is the conservatives and the liberals are so closely in line, their policy platforms are so much almost a mirror image of each other's. Yeah, why the hell? I don't see the difference. Tomato, tomato, potato, potato, right? Not a whole lot of difference separates them in terms of their actual policy. They might spew some rhetoric, but once again, you got to dig down into what is their actual policies. What do they truly represent? What are they trying to implement? What are they trying to thrust and force upon the people? Basically the same idea. Same kind of collectivism, top-down authoritarianism, globalism, all that same kind of bullshit, right? Both of the big establishment parties in this country are aligned very much with each other. That's a fact. But as far as dividing, people like myself, let me just tell you, and there's what, 35 to 40% of the Canadian population, of voting age population, that have never voted, that don't vote, that don't participate in the voting process. And those people I have tremendous amount of respect for. Yeah, unlike you people who say, well, if you don't vote, you don't got nothing to say. No, it's the people that don't vote, actually, that I truly respect, because they're not trying to force or thrust their ideas, edicts, or opinions on me. So those are people that have the live, let live mentality. And even with all the shit that's imposed upon them, they're still willing to remain hands off as far as forcing other people to align with their political edicts or their social or economic policies that they would like to see implemented. So it's the non-voters are the ones that I have genuine respect for, which is why I've only voted a couple times ever in my life. And both of them, I believe, were provincial elections in New Brunswick. Yeah, I'm not a big fan of voting. I don't believe in having rulers or masters. But when I recognize that there is an opportunity which the PPC is offering, and it's got media attention, so people understand that the PPC is a viable option, yes, I will step up and choose to vote in October. As much as I don't like to vote, because like I say, I don't look to impose my own preferences on others. I prefer to be a live, let live kind of guy. But when I recognize everyone else out there is trying to force their ideas and edicts on me, well, I'm using it as a defensive mechanism. Not saying it's the right approach, but I'm definitely going to defend myself in any way that I can. And the only way I'm voting is for the PPC. If the PPC didn't exist, I wouldn't be voting, period. I don't throw my vote away, which is why I haven't ever actually given a vote to the Libertarian Party of Canada, because I know the Libertarian Party. I like Tim. Tim's a great guy. I have a tremendous amount of respect. Matter of fact, a lot of my friends are libertarians from the Libertarian Party of Canada, and I have a tremendous amount of respect for them as the individual. As a political party, because of their, if you stick to the proper philosophy of libertarianism, you don't make a very good politician, which is why you're never going to achieve or surmount any amount of success as far as the Libertarian Party of Canada, or that I can foreseeably see in the immediate future. But I mean, I was never, like I said, I was never going to vote for Scheer. I was never going to vote for Trudeau or Singh or any of these. No one in the established party has my vote. They never have, and they never will. So when these right-wingers or these so-called conservatives, these fake conservatives in reality, and when you're out there saying, oh, you're just dividing the vote. No. You didn't have my vote in the first place, so there's no division going on. Some actors at home or abroad might get into some devilment, as my mother used to call it, just to sow confusion. But Canada faces the world with a united front, though you'll never know it from listening to our politicians calling each other out. The Liberals in particular would rather you think there was a great gulf between them and the Conservatives in foreign policy. After all, Prime Minister Justin Trudeau promised big changes. Canada is back to re-engagement with the world after a decade of Stephen Harper's brutish approach. The record, however, has proved to be the opposite. Foreign Affairs Minister Chrystia Freeland reinforced Mr. Harper's determination to isolate Russia and keep it isolated. The Liberals doubled down on support for Ukraine and sent a battle group to Latvia to help protect NATO's borders, with strong conservative support. Then there's the China file. While Mr. Harper was always suspicious of the regime in Beijing, Mr. Trudeau envisioned a warmer relationship, but hopes for trade talks were wrecked by the Liberals' insistence on putting human rights on the agenda. And then came the detention for extradition of Hawaii executive Meng Wanzhou at the request of the United States. Although Conservative leader Andrew Scheer has criticized Mr. Trudeau's handling of the Huawei controversy, a Conservative government would maintain the Liberal position on honoring the extradition treaty between Canada and the United States while leaving the rest to the courts. In sum, neither Beijing or Moscow have any reason to hope that conspiring to undermine the Liberals would lead to improved relations under Conservative government. The United States has interfered in Canadian elections in the past, quite egregiously when John F. Kennedy was president and John Diefenbaker, whom Mr. Kennedy loathed, was prime minister. But the Trump administration would have no reason to prefer Andrew Scheer to Justin Trudeau as prime minister or vice versa. Mr. Scheer insists, of course, that he would have struck a better deal for Canada in the renegotiation of the North American Free Trade Accord, but he wouldn't have. From Barack Obama to Donald Trump and from Stephen Harper to Justin Trudeau, Canada-U.S. relations have followed broadly the same path, protecting Canadian interests, especially on trade, while working to preserve the Western Alliance. Speaking of trade, the Liberals concluded agreements with the European and Pacific nations that were launched by the Conservatives. On the environment, both parties are committed to meeting the carbon reduction targets established under the Paris Accord. Neither Conservative nor Liberal governments met those targets. It's safe to assume that Mr. Scheer would do no better. The Conservative leader has promised that as Prime Minister, he would move Canada's embassy in Israel to Jerusalem. And Mr. Trudeau authorized a small peacekeeping mission in Mali that a Conservative government would probably not have approved. But the mission will end in July after only 1 year. It's unlikely that most Canadians even knew about it. The two parties even mimic each other in their failures. Mr. Harper got nowhere in his efforts to get the Indian government interested in meaningful trade talks. Mr. Trudeau got nowhere also, as his trip to India turned into a personal embarrassment. Mr. Harper tried and failed to persuade the Obama administration to approve the Keystone XL pipeline. The Trump administration did approve the pipeline, but the project is hung up in the courts. In any case, both the Liberals and the Conservatives want to see a Keystone go ahead. As for Saudi Arabia, both parties agree that protecting the sale of armored vehicles to the regime is the first priority, whatever else happens on the human rights front. Polarization over foreign policy is a curse. Just look at the US and UK for examples of populations divided over the role their nation should play in the world. But Canada is blessed by having two major parties with virtually identical views. Just don't tell the Liberals. It drives them nuts. So, yeah, exactly. But yes, this is, like I say, and I mean, the fact that Scheer, when pressed by a reporter, actually identified as a feminist, just like Trudeau. Yeah, I mean, come on. Like I say, and both of these guys, right? I mean, Scheer with his baby face looked like someone that it was basically, he's got a teenager fucking look to him in an adult body. And then Trudeau, which basically acts like a teenager still. And I guess he kind of has an adult body, although, when you look at him without a shirt on in that, like that boxing ring, actually his body does kind of look a little bit like and resemble that of a prepubescent teen. But I mean, yes, these are people that are punching way above their weight in terms of actually their competence or capabilities. I guess that's another thing that they share in common, right? So once again, folks, what does that all mean? Well, the NDP, the reason why it's not even brought up here is we all know, yeah, we're not going full socialist. Yeah, we're not going to turn Canada into full-on Venezuela mode, right? So really, when you look out there, folks, there's really only one option in October. And that's the PPC under the leadership of Maxime Bernier. Yeah, that's why I jumped on early. That's why I'm a founding member and a supporter. And that's why I will definitely be checking that box and supporting the PPC in October. We got a lot of work to do between now and then. But I'm ready. I'm chomping at the bit and willing to do what I've got to do to help put this country on the proper path to individual liberty. It's Canadian Libertarian, and I love liberty.